morning and hello. My name's Amanda Ruback. I'm a nurse and the community outreach coordinator here at the Missouri Poison Center. And it is spring, even though the weather may not seem to be making it so or looking like it. We really want to keep ourselves this spring safe from pests and pesticides out there in our environment, in and around our homes. So welcome. Today with me is Rosanna. She is one of our nurses and specialists in poison information, and she has been here for quite a while. How many years have you been here at the Missouri?
Close to 20.
Very good. Yeah. So wealth of expertise, and we're going to talk about pests and pesticides and how to keep you and your family safe. So I just want to start by talking a little bit about what are pests. I mean, we know that there are mice and there are different types of rodents and other bugs and creepy crawlies, and all of these are considered pests. But pests are destructive or nuisance organisms, so that can include insects, even weeds and bacteria and other wildlife that could affect your crops, food, livestock, or health. So lots of things do fall into this category. And a pest is any animal, plant, or insects which might have a harmful effect on humans or their living conditions. So, for example, some pests may carry disease, like mosquitoes, and some pests may damage food, like rats or grasshoppers, mice in the home as well. And then other pests might damage property, such as your home or living conditions. So that could even be termites, even mold. We don't often think of as a pest, but it does fit into this category. Other types of pests might include ants or bed bugs, cockroaches, mice, mites, mold, mosquitoes, spiders, ticks, weeds, and other wildlife. So this kind of topic or term does refer to many different things that we may or may not think of as pests. So it goes beyond just the common mouse or mosquito. And then when we talk about pesticides, these are things that are actually fairly beneficial to society. We really do rely on pesticides to reduce the risk of disease and other issues. So pesticides are used to control disease-carrying insects such as ticks and mosquitoes. They're used to control rodents, which can transmit disease as well. And they're used to control germs and other pathologic organisms such as bacteria and virus and fungi. And so we really rely on pesticides in a lot of different ways. And so I just want to now hand it over to Rosanna, and she's going to talk about some of the specific types of pesticides, and she's going to start with the herbicides.
Good morning, everybody. Let's talk a little bit about some of the different pesticides. Herbicides are used to kill weeds. That's basically what they mean. Some kill weeds quickly. Some take up to a week or more to kill weeds. Just make sure when you're selecting a product that you select it to your situation. How quickly do you need the weed to be killed? Try to identify the type of weed before choosing the herbicide that you need, and make sure that you read the directions on the container when you go to mix up your herbicide. Some are a concentrate, some are dilute already. When you're using your sprayer, just remember that you usually have put it under pressure. And when you go to release that pressure, turn your face away from that sprayer so that you don't get a mist back up in your face. The other thing to remember when you're applying those herbicides, don't do it on a windy day. There's no need to expose yourself or anyone else to the backflow of that particular herbicide. What we know about these things is they're relatively safe. Most of the things on the market today, if you follow the directions, are going to be safe for you to use. There's the occasional allergy you can get from these, or a reaction to some of the surfactants or the soaps that they use as a base for their product. But if you're careful and you wash your hands, remove your clothes and take a shower when you're finished, you're going to be okay. The thing you need to remember, don't let your children be around while you're spraying. They mimic what you do, and they will pick this up and they won't think twice about turning that sprayer towards their face. So just good safety precautions. Release the pressure when you're done. Make sure you empty out the canister. And we're here for questions. Just keep the labeling if you can so that we know what kind of product we're dealing with. I'd like to go on to insect repellents. Insect repellents are going to be a very common thing this year. As you know, mosquitoes are going to be out, reduces your risk of being bitten. And of course, the goal with that is to reduce your risk of disease. So the most common kind is DEET. DEET, permethrin, citronella, and picaridin are now what you find out in the market to be purchased. The environmental agency is who regulates what kind of insect repellent you can buy. DEET is proved as safe and effective. It is not harmful if you follow the directions. Having said that, DEET can cause a skin rash to some people, especially in high concentrations. Those reactions are rare, but do be aware that in certain people you can get a rash from DEET. The thing that you need to know about DEET is that the percentage dictates how long it's effective. So a 10% DEET is effective for about 2 hours. 30% DEET is effective for about 5 hours. Concentrations more than 50% DEET, they provide no extra protection. There's really no reason for us to even go there. When you use it on children, they shouldn't have a DEET that's greater than 30%. And of course, children under the age of 2 months should not have DEET applied to themselves at all. Do remember this is still an insect repellent, and when your children come home, it's time to dunk them in the tub and wash their skin with soap and water. Otherwise, these things are very safe and can be used as directed on the back of the container. Rodent and bait to kill mice and rats. Everybody knows there's going to be the occasional mouse or rat that gets inside. You can minimize that, of course, by trying to close up your garbage, trying to make sure your bird seed doesn't spill out, and believe it or not, a leaky faucet where they're looking for something to drink. If you do use a bait of some sort, please take a picture of the label or save the labeling from the bait that you're using. There are now about 3 different kinds of baits that you can purchase. The most common kinds, one is a kind that causes the mouse to bleed. One is a kind that causes the mouse to, so to speak, fall asleep. And one is a kind that contains vitamin D, changes their calcium level. In most situations, if a child gets a hold of these and chews on one of those little blocks, we're not terribly worried. I want you to brush their teeth. I want you to have them rinse and spit as best as they can, wash their hands, and then come to the phone with the label. If you don't find the label, it's okay, but it really helps us to know which one we're dealing with to be able to tell you if there's any symptoms at all that we'd be expecting and how long before we would see symptoms. Do remember that these don't taste very good to people or children. Children will spit them out. However, dogs love them. So please be aware when you're dealing with your pets to put these in a place where animals and children can't reach them. And we're here if you need us for questions. The last one I want to talk about is the good old bug bomber fogger. Remember when you use these to make sure you don't use them in a very enclosed space, such as a closet or a cabinet or inside your car. Reduce the risk of fire by not lighting it near an open flame, obviously. Turn off any pilot lights that you may have. This particular fogger is very safe. It's a fake chrysanthemum plant-based product. It is an allergen to some people, especially those that have asthma. But if you follow the directions, again, that's on the container, you should be okay. So what do they typically say? Well, you shake the can, point it away from your face, have your place planned out. Where are you going to set this can so that it doesn't tip over? You hit the little nozzle, there's a little click that you'll hear, and the mist will start spraying out. And you have a couple of minutes to get out of there before you ever have to even be exposed to that mist. If you're exposed to the mist while you're in the house, when you get outside, just take a wet cloth, wipe over your face, get to the fresh air, and you'll be fine. If you're having some coughing, please call us. It is something that will resolve. When you get back home, after taking time to let the actual fogger work, which is sometimes 2 hours, sometimes 4 hours, You will need to ventilate your home for a given amount of time. Some say 15 minutes, some say 20, some say 30. So pay attention to that direction on the back of the label before you set them off. And ventilating the home means opening windows and doors. And then you go inside and you're finished. It's over. These particular things are very safe. And again, if we can help you in any way, shape, or form, if there's a mishap, we want to hear from you. I think I'll turn it back over to Amanda. And Amanda, if you have anything that you'd like to add, I'd welcome it.
All right. Thank you so much. Some great information about safe uses of pesticides in our home. And just to talk a little bit more about safety, really the risk of exposure depends on two things. It's really the exposure or the amount you get in or on your body or that's released in the environment, and then how toxic or how poisonous something is to the environment. And of course, most of our home products in general are safe use. You've heard Rosanna talk about that. As long as they're used safely according to package directions, there really is a low risk of toxicity or poisoning to people. But we do want to make sure that we use them properly. More is not always better. It doesn't help the situation and could put yourself, your children, or your pets at risk. And so that is really some of the information we want to talk about. There's also pesticides that contain more than one ingredient. And so that's why we've been talking about saving some of that packaging and labeling. It's so important when we have an exposure, and Rosanna knows as she's talking to people on the phone to know exactly what we're talking about and what you're exposed to. There's so many different products out there. There's so many new formulations coming to the market. And if you have a picture or even the package labeling, that truly helps our specialists to get accurate information and first aid advice for your situation. And then on that packaging, I just want to show you some things that you could kind of learn more about. There are some words, and we call these signal words. And these are words such as caution, warning, and danger. And they are often found on the label in different ways. And these help us to show how toxic or how potentially poisonous a product is. And so if you kind of think about it as a stoplight, that's kind of the levels of risk. And so the lowest risk word would be warning. It means the product is moderately toxic. And then caution is more, is slightly toxic, through the skin or the eyes or the mouth. And then the danger is that red light. And so that's the most high risk route of poisoning. And so this really also should be included on the label. And there's so much information on those labels, and we know it can be cumbersome. So if you ever do have a question, I want to just bring it back one slide and talk about the National Pesticide Information Center, or NPIC. They're another great resource that the poison centers work with. They don't deal with exposures like poison centers do, where we would give you first aid advice, but they are very helpful in terms of determining what products you need, safety, other safe use and application. They can get you, if you know you have a specific weed or pest, they can help you to narrow down exactly what product you should buy, as well as just provide a lot of general information. So they're a great resource to kind of go to their website as well as know their phone number. Of course, for a poisoning or exposure, I want to make sure that you have the poison helpline in your phone. It's so important to have that set ahead of time. And we are 1-800-222-1222. And you can save that in your cell phone as a contact under Poison Help or Missouri Poison Center. And so in case you do have an exposure this spring or summer or any time of year, you can call and speak to one of our registered nurses or pharmacists who are specially certified in poison information. Again, we're 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and a great resource to you. So I want to thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Rosanna, for your expertise.
You're welcome. Amanda, do you mind if I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
Just to the folks out there that are listening, you know, you're going to be visiting people this summer. Lots of vacations are going on. Just remember that a lot of people have old pesticides sitting in their barns and at their farmhouses. And those older pesticides are not as controlled as the ones we use now that you purchase at, you know, Walmart and Home Depot and Lowe's, and can contain much stronger and more potent toxins. Mothballs, for example, can have a much stronger and more potent toxin in them. Mole repellents can have a much stronger and more potent toxin in them. So when you go to these places, pay very close attention not to go looking or opening containers in those instances, and keep your small children away from those areas if you can, just for safety's sake, and have a great vacation.
Great. Thank you for that additional information. We appreciate your expertise, and we're here to help anytime with questions or exposures. Give us a call, 1-800-222-1222.